Tuesday.
Not on Facebook Live.
We're not?
I am lad. Oh, I thought you were talking to all of us like you were on Facebook Live right
No,
now.
Amanda
But
is
there are
correct.
people on Zoom.
All right, what's up, everybody? We are here in our first class. We are in the, what do we call this room here?
Bullpen.
We're in the bullpen in the Wilmington office, and it's actually going to be a cool little intimate spot for training. Today, we're in luck. We have Culin Date here. Culin is a good friend of Shannon Allen, our amazing MCA, and Culin and his wife are here to talk about short-term property management and specifically how to maximize returns and make a bunch of money for yourself and build wealth and help your clients do the same through Airbnb. I've been doing this for a long, maybe 2 years with Airbnb and thought we were doing pretty well. A couple sessions with Culin has really helped us sort of just fine tune things, and we're already getting a lot more ROI. So he's a definite expert on it. And one of the things that he'll talk about that I do really believe, I don't think it's too late to get into Airbnb. I don't think it's too late to be in short-term rentals. It's a lot more than just beach properties or mountain properties. We do really well with in-town 3-bedroom, 2-bath, smaller homes that we're rehabbing. And Culin said this before, but I think it's like this we'll look back on this and say this is one of the biggest wealth building opportunities of our lifetime, because it just allows us to get higher return on investment and cash flow properties that wouldn't have worked a few years ago. So take notes, take lots of notes, and we'll let Culin kick it off.
Thanks, Lad. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Culin Date. This is being recorded. I guess we can get okay there. And I'm going to present a big model for short-term rental success. And as I do, I will give you a little bit about my backstory. My intrigue for real estate began kind of at a young age. I would say high school. You may have a similar situation where you had a friend whose parents had the beach house or the lake house, and you go there for the weekend and you're amazed by this great lake experience, and you're talking to the parents, you find out, we bought this place for $23,000, you know? That happened to me like 2 or 3 times in high school. And I just always carried that lesson along with me. And I started thinking after I graduated college and had a job, where's those deals for our generation? Like, are we ever going to see that kind of opportunity where I can buy some beach house or lake house for $24,000 and it's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars later? And that came to me when I first got associated with the short-term rental market. So my son was about 3 years old, and I bought a little cabin in Luray, Virginia. Just if any of you have 3-year-olds, that's a great time to want to get out of the house and do something a little bit different with your kids. And so we bought this little cabin, $160,000. And for a couple of years, we fixed it up. And it was a pretty good deal. $160,000 is a little 2-bedroom cabin. And we thought about, should we rent it out? No, I said to my wife, what are we going to make a couple $100 a month? It's not worth $300-400 a month or some small amount to take all of our stuff in and out and make a rental. But I was lending it out to friends, and then friends of friends started to inquire. And when friends of friends started to inquire, I said, all right, well, let me put it up on Airbnb and see what happens. That was like 7 years ago. That cabin has not had an open weekend since. Since I got really good at what I'm doing 2 or 3, 4 years ago, it hasn't really had an open day. It has a few open days become orphans between bookings, right? So I put this cabin out for rent, and it makes $2,000 the first month. It makes $3,000 gross the second month. And now I'm getting really intrigued. And so I'm also a tech entrepreneur. I've developed, I've had companies in the website space, SaaS model type companies, electronics manufacturing type companies. And I sold a company about 3 years ago and started scratching my head as the entrepreneur. What's my next thing? I'm 48 years old at the time. I'm thinking I got to come up with another business idea. I got to start another company. And I started looking at my cabin. I'm thinking it's doing really well. What if I bought another cabin? And that summer I ended up buying 3 cabins, and they all started. At this point now, I'm starting to get really decide that this is going to be a business. I really got to dive into understanding how to scale this, how to make the profits work. And I do. And I find that there's 3 or 4 major things that we're going to hit today, some tools that we're going to go over that will really take an average Airbnb rental property and turn it into a supercharged property. Yes.
I'm sorry if you said it, I missed it. Where are these cabins?
So my cabins are in the Shenandoah Valley, Virginia. And we'll talk about property selection in a slide or two here, and I'll show you why that extends, that opportunity extends all the way down there. So yeah, I've hosted about 1,200 reviews and about 1,500 guests, and learned a lot through that experience along that journey, and we'll dive into that. So we're going to talk about the opportunity set, why Airbnb, why now, where to find properties, where to find the best ROI type properties, things to do in creating your listings, pricing for occupancy, and then automating your operations. So these 3 or 4 things will really set you apart. So the Airbnb opportunity. Airbnb is now bigger than the world's 5 top hotel brands combined, right? Worth more than all 3 of the top world's hotel chains. Yeah, that's a fun statistic, but what does that mean to us? Unless you're Brian Chesky, you founded Airbnb and is a billionaire for having this idea of renting out literally his air mattress, Airbnb. What's that mean to us?
Travel's changed.
Travel has changed. That is exactly it. That is people are devaluing that Marriott experience. That's giant resort, all inclusive. I was talking to someone a little while ago. That change started for me when I had kids and a 3-year-old, and you want to stay in a place that has a kitchen and 2 bedrooms, and you can close the door on the bedroom to put the kids to bed and relax a little bit with your spouse. So that has been changing. People are wanting this more unique travel experience, right? They don't want to stay in the cookie cutter. So that was the Airbnb business became really good. So why do we care? Again, because we can get a part of that, right? I can buy Marriott stock, but that's not really getting a piece for my wealth building. Why we care about this is travel has changed, and I can participate in that. I can make a $200,000 investment in a condo or a small home or a small cabin and get a piece of that. Airbnb is going to charge me 3%, and I can go and make $6,000 or $8,000 in top line revenue on a $200,000 or $300,000 investment. And we'll dive into that, and I'll show you all my properties, show you how to find those types of properties. But supercharging that is COVID. COVID's the best thing that ever happened to Airbnb. It shut us down for about 2 months, but then came back, and our numbers are up 35, 40% in terms of top line revenue from the year before. So we are right here, as Lad said, we are like at the corner. Is it too late for Airbnb? This is the exact right moment to get involved and start investing in Airbnb properties. I say Airbnb, short-term rental. If someone out, I don't want to offend someone who's, maybe has a successful property in vacation rentals, VRBO or bookings. 99% of what I'll teach today is applicable to all platforms. I'm an Airbnb guy. I believe in soul sourcing platforms. We'll talk about that. So I have 6 cabins, and they generate $60,000 to $70,000 per month on average. My 6 cabins are tracking $74,000 for July. Now there's some seasonality to that. So I say average, December numbers, I'm going to be just as booked, but I'm not going to get the same rates. I'm going to get a little bit lower rates. We're going to talk about that in pricing. So I say owning just one short-term rental property not only will pay for itself, it will pay your primary mortgage and put cash in your pocket to either reinvest, donate, make improvements. And that's just one property. And there's really not a limit to scalability. So the asset-based lenders are now finding short-term rentals, and you're able now to make purchases that are no doc type purchases like you would in a multifamily investment scenario. So your personal finances don't have to be as tightly tied to the investments that you're making. So property selection.
All right,
I realized, when my friends were coming to me, I realized that what I did, what I was performing on Airbnb, I could replicate. So I started coaching. Friends were coming to me, friends of friends were coming to me, and I started coaching individuals and finding out that the systems that I was using was attaining the same results in terms of price per night, in terms of occupancy, in terms of rank position for other people who I was helping. So if you have a rental property now and it's at the beach, or you have a rental property now and it's a condo, everything that I'm going to talk about is applicable. But I'm laser focused on a very specific asset class that I think has a higher return on investment. So within driving distance of any major metropolitan area, there's a place that people like to go for the weekend. When you've got a romantic weekend or a 3-day weekend or an anniversary weekend, where do you want to go? Maybe it's the beach, maybe it's a river, it's a lake, it's wine country. I believe that those places that aren't beach type places and aren't downtown type places, the getaway places, there's a repurposing available of that real estate. So if somebody buys a house at the lake and they use it as their weekend getaway, and they do that until their kids grow up, and then they don't want to go anymore because the kids it's not as much fun, they're going to sell that asset. They're selling that based on their use, and it's priced at, an agent's probably going to price it based on that use case.
Yeah.
The real
Agents are
arbitrage
pricing
here, the
houses
real way to
based on
supercharge the ROI
deducting the home,
is to
not
find properties
Airbnb.
like that that are being
That's
sold
why we can compete
as
that in the
family
market.
weekend getaways and repurposing that asset into a 99% occupied short-term rental.
Yeah.
Right. So everything we're gonna talk about, we can make money at the beach, but if I'm gonna buy a beach house, it's probably being priced somewhat
Already.
like there's some rental revenues. Now, what we're finding down here and talking to investors down here is that is also changing. Where it might have been a 3 or 4 month season in the past, we're now finding through Airbnb that we're able to rent that in a larger part of the season, larger part of the year, and get that higher return. So there is a higher return to be had buying, that beach house that was priced for a 14-week season, because we're getting a longer season out of it. But I'm really laser focused personally, my investment strategy in finding properties that are undervalued and repurposing that asset into a full-time rental. So where do you guys like to go? What are some areas that, in North Carolina or South Carolina where you might drive to for a weekend?
A lot of people from the beach go into the mountains, so you'll find like the same thing you're talking about, the cabins, Banner Elk, right, Asheville.
Lake Lure.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're real estate professionals. We're data-driven people, right? You guys, there's a great tool for understanding a market for short-term rentals. And it's called AirDNA. This tool costs about $20 a month. If you have an area that you're interested in making an investment in, and I asked that question, where do you like to go? Because I like to go and spend time in my short-term rentals. You got to spend some time there to improve them. You got to be passionate about the area. If you're a lake person or a river person, or if you're wine country, or if you're a cabin type person, if there's areas that you want to investigate, that you would like to spend time in, what you would like to invest in, AirDNA is a tool that you can use that will tell you a lot of information about that market. So this is for Luray, Virginia, where I have most of my rentals. So it's given it a market grade of A+. And I'm not sure how close you can see here, but it breaks down into 4 or 5 major categories: rental demand, revenue growth, seasonality, regulation, and investability. So AirDNA gets all of the information from Airbnb into its system, and it's doing a market analysis for us. It's saying there's a strong rental demand. It's at 90%. Revenue growth, it's saying, is around 50. Seasonality, how seasonal is the rentals? Investability and regulation. Regulation is an important one, right? So we know that we probably heard the stories, France, New York, some parts of California, where short-term rentals are being regulated out or being taxed. We prefer to be taxed than regulated, legislated out. There's also some good information here about daily rates. So if I was to make that investment in, I think we've got some examples here. So here's let's just jump to Lake Lure. So Lake Lure, for example, we got an average daily rate, $280 a night, occupancy rate 63%, and a projected revenue. The things that we're going to talk about today are how you can not have an average occupancy rate of 63%. We're going to talk about how we can get that occupancy rate to 98%, 95%, right? And how to take that average daily rate from $280 a night to $300-400 a night. What time is it?
12:30.
12:30. Just want to for pace here. So somebody asked, where do I invest? I invest in Shenandoah Valley, but the whole Blue Ridge Mountain Range, spans from Pennsylvania to Georgia and Tennessee. That it's all the same market. So this is showing some data points. These are just Airbnbs along that Blue Ridge Mountain Range. I like the mountains, and there's great value to be found in the mountains in terms of buying these cabins that are $200,000-300,000 instead of $1 million beach house, right? So you don't need $1 million to get started with a beach house. You can do $180,000 cabin, in the mountains. So this is another area. I'm going to get this wrong. Sawana.
Never
Have
heard
you
of
heard of Sawana? This is sort of at the base of. This is a property that's at the base in Asheville. So look at this little place. It's a cute little A-frame. It's a 1-bedroom. They're getting like $90 a night on their rent here. But if you can see at all their calendar, it's completely booked,
Wow.
right? So is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? It's good. It is good. Vlad, is there another side of that coin?
Based on what you showed us, it's bad.
And
It's all
completely
booked
booked?
out. We left
Uh-huh.
some money on the table.
That means this guy's leaving. This isn't, this is just a random listing I picked up. So it's good. So it tells you, yes, there's demand there. People are booking these properties fully, but at $98 a night, he's leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
This should be a $250 a night cabin. And 95% of people on Airbnb are doing this wrong. Right? They're taking an old mentality of it's awesome that I'm full. It's awesome that my beach place, my summer is sold, when you really don't want to be. You want to have that inventory far enough out. So that's Lake Lure. This is another example. This is the top property in Lake Lure. It's the same kind of thing. They're at $213 a night. They have 0 available nights to rent. They have 1 week at the end of August that's available. So this house could easily be $400, $500, $600 a night if done correctly. So the properties are out there. The market is out there. We're seeing people in Airbnb having fully occupied properties in these markets. So then it just becomes a matter of where do you want to spend time? What works for you? Do you like the lake? Do you like the mountains? Do you like the river? Do you like the beach? They're all viable opportunities. So once you've identified an opportunity, an area that you like to be in, you're going to create your initial listing. I'll do this kind of quickly. So Airbnb is the platform that I prefer. Airbnb, I also prefer being on a single platform. So it could be VRBO or it could be Airbnb. It's a matter of being sort of a master on one. It's a matter of coordinating calendars. And it's a matter of rewarding the algorithm. We'll talk about that again in a minute. So we want to look for macro and micro amenities. So as we're looking for these properties, we're looking for screen porches, we're looking for views, we're looking for, just a great setting, location for the property. And then we want to go through the property, do kind of a clean eye look, get your decor, clean decor. We talk it when we buy cabins in the Luray area, we say we get rid of the dead animals and doilies. Right. So it's because it's grandma's, it's great. What happens to the lake house, right? You take all the stuff from your house and you pile it in there, and your mismatched silverware and grandma's quilts. And, Uncle Buck was a hunter. So he puts, look at Lad's listing. So when I did a listing review for him, I looked through it, I'm like, these are all clean. These are super clean. Right. So the first thing that you want to do is get rid of that stuff. You want that rustic outside and crate and barrel inside. Minimalistic. 83% of our booked guests are women. So women tend to find the listing, maybe they consult with their family to book it, but 83%, it was actually 83% of when we were running ads. Our first click-throughs were coming from women who start the search. So the guy might want that rustic cabin look, but the woman might want that cleaner look inside, that crate and barrel kind of look inside. Professional photos. I don't have to say this to you guys as real estate professionals. 95% of people on Airbnb are shooting the place with their phone. It matters so much to have professional photos. Do you guys use like is there a specific company that you work with, like Home Visit? Or?
Yeah, so CJ does, a lot of people use
Lighthouse.
Media, Lighthouse, HDR.
HDR is key. If you buy a place and you think I'm going to save the $200, $300 on professional photos, please don't. you will stand out head and shoulders over your competition. And in the next slide or two, we'll get into some of the Airbnb SEO and why photos really matter. And the last point on listing your property is you're providing a Ritz-Carlton type experience. We are competing against that Hilton and that Marriott. It's not that person that was, getting the rustic cabin for $98 a night. We're charging $700 a night, but we have to also provide that level of surprise and delight, a bottle of wine, some snacks when they arrive, a great communication through the booking process, and just a really great Ritz-Carlton type experience. So this is the meat and potatoes, the pricing per occupancy. This is the big secret sauce. We need to understand that Airbnb is a search algorithm just like Google. We can list our property for free, but Airbnb is going to decide whose properties it shows first. There's 300 odd properties in Wilmington. There's 300 odd properties in Luray. I have to be on that first page search results. So what are Airbnb's goals? Airbnb has two goals as a company. One, profit maximization. Two, guest satisfaction. So if I start to understand those, I can now start to think of the inputs that Airbnb is going to want to decide where they're going to show my property. If you Google search for something, how many pages do you go through? Do you really go through? Do you go past the first page? Maybe. When you're looking for a rental property, you go past the first page? Maybe. So that's got to be your goal, is to understand what's going to get you on that first page. And here's the list. This is it. Number one, booking and occupancy. Airbnb is going to show you because you close. If you're at 90% or above occupancy, Airbnb is going to reward you by showing your listing above everybody else's. So those people who are at 56% occupancy, they're going to get pushed down. You're closing the sale for Airbnb, and they're getting their 3% from you, their 10% from the guest, and you're a closer. And that is the number one thing that they're most interested in.
How do they measure that? What dates? I mean, not into the future, right? Because you wouldn't be that booked out in the future.
That's a good question, Lot. Nobody knows exactly, nobody knows what the exact algorithm is, but we can measure the results, right? So is it that you have been 90% booked in the past, or that you're 90% booked going forward? I don't think anybody really knows the answer, outside of Airbnb, to that question.
Okay.
But keeping a high occupancy is the number one thing that you can do. So we're high occupancy, so we're going to be shown first. So we're going to get more views. We're going to have professional photos, so people are going to engage with those views. They don't even have to book your property, but you've now been seen more than other properties. Airbnb measures engagement, that they've clicked through your listing. They might see your price tag and run away, but you're scoring points. You're moving the ball in the Airbnb algorithm to get yourself shown higher, so that you can be shown more often to get that $700 a night booking in 2 months from now. So views, clicks, wish list additions, it's kind of like favorites. Your relative price, this is the other side of the equation. We have to balance charging, $1,000 a night. If the market is at $200 a night, that will be a detractor. So we always have to kind of keep an eye on both sides of that coin. So we're charging way more than the average competitor all the time, then that's a negative input. So your relative instant booking, you have to have instant booking turned on. Airbnb wants this to be like a hotel experience, where the guest can be in their pajamas with their spouse and book the place at 11 o'clock at night without having to call you, without having to talk to you. So the other is Superhost. Yeah.
There's a question in the chat.
Yeah.
Because on the slide, why only one platform? I understand being a pro at one platform, but assuming you could learn both, wouldn't you want to capitalize on it?
So that's a great time for this question, right? So if Airbnb is interested in me being a closer and being occupied, and let's say I'm 100% booked, but 50% on Vrbo and 50% on Airbnb, am I making money for Airbnb?
No.
No. And they know that, and their algorithm is designed that way. And this is a question that comes up. You'll see it in like Facebook chats. You'll see it sometimes in books. Well, it's counterintuitive. If I can be listed for 10 places for free, shouldn't I be? right? VRBO, well, it's free marketing. Should I be on all those places? But you're diluting your search engine optimization. You're diluting that across two platforms, and neither algorithm is going to reward you. And that is like pro tip, you know, a lot of people get that wrong. Most people get that wrong. But if you can focus on making one algorithm really happy, then you'll, you know, rise to the top.
And is that because you can only have a booking on one of the platform, but you can't?
But you've only on one property.
Right.
If it's half booked on one
So
platform,
you can't have Tuesday on one and Tuesday on.
well, but you're still at 50% occupancy,
Gotcha.
right?
Yeah.
But Airbnb, at the end of the
Can't
day,
sell the
Airbnb
house twice.
can't sell a house twice.
Yeah.
Right.
I know, yeah.
So, yeah, you know, it's an economic animal. Airbnb wants, you know, its revenue stream, and it really wants people. They've done things over the ages to try to, they're also in a war with the other booking platforms, right? They want to reward you in addition to that financial piece for them. They don't want to lose that market share. They want to reward you for being their partner, right? So
If you
instant,
weren't booking out, I mean, if 3 years from now, if we were 50% booked, maybe we change that strategy. We just never had to look at anything else because we're 100% booked on Airbnb.
and there, you know, I don't say Airbnb is, you know, traditionally, for example, like VRBO caters more to that like 1 week stay at the beach.
Yeah.
So if one of you had a beach house and it's, you know, booked out on VRBO, I'm not saying don't be on VRBO, but don't fool around with Airbnb, right? You got to commit. And both algorithms work, you know, in a similar fashion.
So it sounds like Airbnb gives you more versatility on what you're wanting to do as long as you're booked. VRBOs, you said mainly just people go there for like a week, where Airbnb may be like a couple days here and there, or
Just a little bit of a tendency, right? There is a little bit of a demographic difference. You know, Airbnb skews a little bit younger. VRBO acquired a company called HomeAway. You know, they were early on, more in that kind of 1 week stay. So there's a little bit of a skew towards that. But that playing field is even. All right, so Superhost professional photos. The algorithm actually knows if you have high quality photos versus blurry photos. So again, that's, you know, your $300.
Are you gonna talk at all about how do you get to Superhost status?
You get to Superhost status by not canceling on people and having 5-star reviews,
Okay.
right? So you have to have a 4.8 average over that 90-day period, and you get to Superhost.
Got it.
Part of the trick to Superhost is people think if I get to Superhost, that is actually the accolade that Airbnb is going to say, I am Superhost, therefore they're going to show me higher. The factors that Airbnb takes into Superhost status actually is what they use to determine how they show you. So just achieving towards those goals will rise you in the search ranks without waiting for that star of Superhost. But there also a consumer preference, right? So I look for Superhost when I'm shopping. Oh, that guy's a Superhost, right? So I think there's a consumer piece to it as well. So new listings get a boost for 2 weeks. When you list, they give you a 2-week boost. And response time. Airbnb wants you to be quickly responsive, and we'll hit on some tools on how to do that. So as your ranking improves, you get more views. As you get more views, your ranking improves, more people see it, and so you can get those outlier type pricing, those higher pricings. So let's talk about pricing. Pricing for occupancy. We want to be priced 90% or more full. Most hosts underprice their weekends, underprice their shoulder days, Sundays and Thursdays, and overprice their weekdays. Most people set $250 a night, and this is what my house is worth. What is your house worth? House is worth what somebody's
Willing to
pay for it. Right? So and I've had this conversation with a number of investors in this sort of market area, which is, well, I have my calendar closed 3 months, 4 months out. Open your calendar for a year out. Let the pricing tools that I'm going to talk about set the prices, because if it's my wife's birthday on October 1st, I'm not going to wait till September 15th to book us a really nice place. I'm going to do that now. And the nicest place available, if it happens to be $700 a night, I'm price insensitive because it's my wife's birthday or because it's my wedding anniversary, and that's an adorable cabin, or we got married right around the corner from that, right? So opening your calendars further out, it's your place is worth that night what somebody's willing to pay for it. And it took me a while to kind of figure that out. And that's really where I broke through with my business, is when I let the tools take over my pricing as opposed to my own self-limiting beliefs. So third-party dynamic pricing, the one that I use, this is where the magic happens, folks. If I lost anybody, come back. This is where you're gonna get 5 minutes of $1 million value. So there are many third-party pricing tools, Wheelhouse, Beyond Pricing. I use one called Price Labs. This is a cabin of mine. This is my most recent acquisition. I paid $320,000 for this cabin, and this is its rental rates. So take a look. Look at Wednesday, October 27th. The weekday's going for as low as $327. Most people who own this cabin would take that $327 and price that cabin for $300 a night, $325, $350 every night. Look what the tool does to October 9th, the weekend of the 8th and 9th, the weekend of the 15th, 16th, 22nd and 23rd. Guys, I would never spend $800 a night to stay in this cabin. Wouldn't. Ask my wife. She'll tell you.
It's almost your mortgage payment.
That is that one night. This is the power. This is why we're looking around a corner right now in investing in short-term rentals. It's not because you're going to buy a $200,000 condo and rent it for $2,000 a month. You're going to buy, I paid $320,000 for this cabin, and it will generate $13,000 in revenue this month. And that's the power here. And how are we doing that? We're doing that by understanding the stuff we talked about 5 minutes ago about occupancy. And we're doing that by letting the tools that know, look at the next weekend, look at the 29th and 30th. I have no idea why that goes down to $500. This tool gets all the data from Airbnb. They know how many places are on the market, how many places are booked, what those places are booked for, how many people are searching for that weekend. So this little robot knows for October 8th and 9th, how many people are looking on Airbnb, not even booking, right? Just looking for places. And so it knows that demand is high. This is how the airlines make money, guys, right? It's like, you see there's only 3 seats left at this price, and it gets, when you look one day and then you come back a week later and now I see some nods over here and all of a sudden that $300 flight is $600 every time.
You have to be prepared to book right then and there, the first time you
You have
book,
to
the next time you book, it's gonna go up.
Yeah. So these tools know exactly what the demand is. And guys, this tool is not $800 a month. This is like a $19 a month tool. So the one I use, like I said, it's called Price Labs. That's the house. So, all right, Culin, this is October. These are made up numbers. Are you really going to close on those numbers? So here's a house that's very similar to the one I just showed you, that I've owned for a little bit longer. So the last one I showed you, I've only had it for about 3 months. So this one I've had a little bit longer, very similar property. You can see the open nights are priced very similarly, right? But look at the bookings. Look at the first week, $4,300 for that 7 nights. I've got now the 22nd and 23rd, $1,400 for those 2 nights. And then, the end of the week, $1,900 for the 4 nights. So those are actual, this is a screen cap for my Airbnb account. So these are real live bookings, not just, the tool says maybe I can get $700 a night. These are closed bookings.
And those prices vary by month also.
So this is October. So there's a bias built into this. This is the mountains in October,
Yeah,
right?
Beautiful.
Right, the leaf peepers, right? So summer is really hot. I get these kind of numbers in the summer. I get these kind of numbers in the fall. Will I get these kind of numbers in January and February? These numbers will have to come down, right? But that's okay. That's okay. The numbers will come down. I won't get stuck. I know that they're going to have to come down. The tool will help them come down. I will help them come down because I know the demand this is peak numbers, right? But I'm going to price per occupancy. I'm going to price. I don't care, well, I care, but you want to pull that price down to the point that you keep the place full. Because if you keep it full, you reward the algorithm, you get the more views for the higher price nights, the higher price seasons.
What do you do for cancellation policy?
I do a moderate cancellation policy, which means that they get 50% refund if they cancel more than 5 days out.
Okay.
That is also another Airbnb factor. I think in that slide, the last line was like, there's lots more. You know, every little tool, every little button on Airbnb has some sort of positive or negative effect on
I
the,
would imagine even like the filters, like being able to check certain, because that's how I screen.
do they have a
my
hot tub? Do they have a
search is-
pool? Do they-
Yeah, it's those filters and knowing what boxes you really want to check matters too.
I kind of zoomed past some of that stuff back in the listing setup, but yeah, hot tubs is a macro amenity, pet friendly, if you've got the flooring to accommodate it. You know, a couple of calls with Lad and some other folks, like I just bake it in. So I have like half my places are pet friendly. And I just sort of bake that into the nightly rate. Some people, you know, what are some of the numbers? $100 a night?
We charge pet fees and it's a really good source of income.
Yeah.
Joe
Do
does too.
you, I mean, would you, if with your first Airbnb, would you do a dog, like allow dogs, or just wait?
It
until-
depends on your flooring. If you've got carpet, I stay away from it. If you buy a place that has carpet and you're about to change the flooring, I use like a vinyl product, like a heavy, thick vinyl type product called Cortec that looks like wood or looks like tile, but it's really indestructible. You kind of have to have the right flooring or know that, okay, the flooring is going to get trashed. And then I'll take the money from the first 2 months of rental and I'll, you know, put that $5,000 into the new flooring. But I feel like you really have to have the right flooring to be pet friendly, but people love it. And if you're going to the beach, you want to take your dogs. You go to the mountains, you want to take the dogs. You want to go on the river, you gotta want to take the dogs.
Well, because it's another expense to board them. So it's like
Right.
you're gonna have the expense in the vacation and then you have to leave the animals behind.
Another question in the chat, Colin. How do you set your minimum stay? Do you allow single night stays or try to do 4-7?
So these tools have a lot of powerful settings. So I do 2-night minimums unless it's an orphan. So what is an orphan? An orphan is that day that gets caught between 2 bookings, right? So somebody books Monday and Tuesday night, and then Wednesday's open. I have a booking for Thursday and Friday night. That becomes an orphan night. So the tool is smart enough to know and release my minimum night if I set it up that way. So my smaller places, my 2-bedroom places, I allow 1-night orphan stays. My bigger places, I avoid them because it's more chance of a party kind of situation, right? So the tool can know to override your minimum stays for an orphan and price it appropriately.
And are cleaning fees built into this?
I charge a cleaning fee and I don't charge the 100% of what my cleaner charges me. So if I have a $60 bill for my cleaner, I might pass 40 of that to my client.
Got it.
So I pass about 2/3. And again, now we're kind of getting into some personal preference, right? I rather bake it in and get that higher crazy rate than scare somebody off the cleaner fee. Other people might say, well, you know what, look, the cleaner charged me $100, I'm gonna charge the guest $100. That's kind of gamesmanship at that point, I think.
So how does it work if you are managing from afar? I've heard that you should get the places that are close, that if worst case, somebody doesn't show up, maintenance guy.
That is a
cleaner.
great, that's a great question. I love to go to my places. I spend, you know, a couple of days each month or each quarter going, living, making improvements. That being said, last year I picked up with my family and we moved to Greece for an entire year with a 7-hour time difference and managed 6 properties with 1 incident halfway across the world. They say this in real estate too, right? Like there's books about how to invest in real estate in other states, right? It can be done. You know, people do this. I did it. I just had some systems. I have great housekeepers, right? I employed someone to go by on a quarterly basis and I blocked off 2 days to have an owner's eye. I employed actually my father-in-law to go through and do an inspection. Your housekeepers are doing turnover stuff. As an owner, there's things you have to look for that your housekeeper might not always look for, or little things that need to be fixed. But the great thing about a short-term rental is you're making it perfect every 3 days, as opposed to a long-term rental where it's getting worn down all year long, and then you come in, and you have to address maintenance issues. Yes.
Are you able to show us rentalizer properties and like how it compares to what you were actually getting?
I could do that. I'm not going to do that. We might be a segue. We're going to do some breakouts after this. So people who already have properties that want to like dive into their properties a little bit and dive into some of these tools, maybe you can set up these tools. I'm going to be available to sit down and do that. People that are really interested, I'm ready to get started in this now. Let's look at a couple markets. I've got AirDNA software. We can take a couple look. So we'll do that maybe in a breakout session, but I'd be happy to do that. Automating operations. So time, right? There's a lot of guest communications. There's also a tool for this. So there's an automated messaging tool that we use. Well, I'll back up. So I say it's the bathroom business. So your very first Airbnb, how much time is it going to take you to manage this? You're going to have to get a first set. You're going to have to get it, the decor. You're going to take a week or so getting the place cleaned and ready and photo ready and decorated. But after that, operationally, you run the business from your phone. It's the 5-minute quick answer somebody's question, maybe on your laptop, change a price. But particularly with one, it's a sideline. It's it's behind it's not going to take a lot of your time because we're going to automate the messaging. We're also going to have great housekeepers, and we're going to build a vendor team that we can rely on. We're going to have a handyman that we can call. We have a plumber that we can call. Can I do this remotely? Yeah, I'm going to call a plumber. When I need a plumber, I'm going to call a plumber. All right, I've got a handyman that can fix the screen door for me. And if I'm really 3 states away, I'm going to find somebody to go through and do an owner's eye type of inspection for me every 3-4 months. So the messaging, there's a tool called Smart B&B, and this tool is again like $19 a month, and it automates. We talked about response rates, right? So if you go to one of my lists and you say, Culin, I'm interested in your property, you're going to get an immediate response from the tool. That's your new booking inquiry response. It's a canned response that comes out of the messaging tool. If you book, you're going to get an automatic message that says, thank you for booking. Here's everything that you need to know about planning your trip to my cabin. 5 days before you arrive, your reservation is, you're going to get another email that says, this is everything you need to know about checking in to the cabin. This is, the door codes and the address and all that stuff. So the only questions that you are going to need to answer are the one-off questions. Where exactly is this in relation to your property? Or, do I need to bring charcoal to the grill? Or, I could probably automate that question, but it's really just those unique one-off questions that you are going to have to respond to. So it doesn't take that much time. Where's Dee?
Okay.
How did it go when you set up Smart B&B?
Really good. I'm actually on there right now. It's prompting me to fix my messages.
Okay.
That little issue that we had. But no, it's good because Lad and I run 4 properties. So I'm constantly getting the messages, but I don't have to send them myself because now 3 days prior, it sends the message to them, letting them know that, welcome to Wilmington. Here's a couple of check-in instructions, which prior to that, we actually weren't doing that. So guests were some guests that are a little bit more like, where's my check-in stuff? They were wondering. So they get that stuff now, and then they get the check-in instructions automatically. But then it's also sending us the emails, letting us know, look, we're sending a message on your behalf. Here's the message. So you can pre-approve it too before it goes out if you want to see it.
And I hated writing the same review for every. The guest was great. They were terrific. They were wonderful. It automates that review for you.
Yeah. Nice to.
And you can set that up. So my automated review goes out like 24 hours after their checkout. So if my housekeeper calls me and says, this really wasn't a great guest, I can go in, I can stop that. I've only done this about 3 times. I can stop that review and write my own.
I haven't gotten to that point yet. Because we've had some bad guests this week.
Okay.
So I'm still waiting.
Still waiting for the automated review?
Yeah, I was just writing some reviews.
There's also another feature of Smart B&B for sort of more tech people who remember sort of the earlier days and like Google SEO. It has a function called heartbeats, which updates your listing every 24 hours, which is another signal to Google. It automatically doesn't update your listing that you're an involved host, right? So if you just have a listing and you don't make any changes to that for like 30, 60, 90 days, you're going to start to decay in the rankings. So it just has this little ping called heartbeats that goes out and updates your listing, which signals to Airbnb that you're a really involved host and you're constantly changing and amending your listing.
Like, what do you do to change it or amend it? Like, what are you saying?
I don't know what it does. It does something automatically,
Oh, okay.
right?
Puts a period in and a
Yeah,
period
probably puts
out.
like a space that you can't see somewhere.
I don't know what it does, but it does it and it works really well. And that's what I'm saying about this stuff being replicable. So when I started doing this for my own properties, I was like, I'm getting onto a pretty good system here. And then when I started to do it and help others, and they're, in different markets, and they're number 1, 2, or 3 in search results, and they're getting the same kind of prices that I'm getting on similar properties, then I realized I was onto something and I needed to share it. Right. And that's really why I'm kind of down here and sharing this kind of stuff. So anybody recognize the source to this quote? Anyone can do it. Not everyone will. Will you? There's Shannon, do you know it? Do you know it? Nobody in this room knows the source of this quote. How about it might be on the cover of this book?
I knew something.
Amanda wasn't in the room.
So that's my question for you guys. Have I made the case that this is a unique opportunity to build financial freedom for yourself? I'll kind of do, for me, that's what short-term rental became. It gave me the opportunity not to have to go build another company and hire 50 people or invent a technology. And it gave me the opportunity to travel. I lived in Greece, like I said, with my family for a year. That's the kind of financial freedom I think that we're all looking for. It also gave me the opportunity last week. My son is a competitive lacrosse player, and he had some tryouts coming up. And they were, he's 12, and this is a big deal for a 12-year-old kid. He's trying to get on the next better team. And he was shaken by it. And it was a Monday morning, and I had some work to do. And I sat down, and I started to do my work, and I started thinking about him. And I said, I can do the things that I need to do here in about 15 minutes. And I can take the rest of the day. I can take my son to the sporting goods store. I can take him to the pool. I can keep his nerves cool. And I can just be present for him for this 2 days. It was a Monday and a Tuesday. And that was just a huge why kind of light bulb for me. That's the kind of another kind of financial freedom that I really have never had outside of short-term vacation rentals. So I'll back up just a second. What's standing in your way? There's 3 things that let's get them out in the room. What are the 3 things that might hold you back?
Fear.
Fear, okay.
Finding the properties.
Finding the property. So the deal.
Yep.
The money.
Trying to find vendors to fix them up to get them.
That's a pretty easy one. That counts, but it's not a big one. Time, money, and the deal. Right. So the deals are out there. You are agents. I don't want to hear I can't find a listing. Right. If you want to be in Lake Lure, you can find a listing in Lake Lure for yourself. If you want to be in the mountains, I think you guys have the skill sets to go find half my properties I bought off market. So you can go to the MLS, or you can find your own listing, right, in that market. And then the time and the money. Hopefully I've solved a little bit for the time problem. You tend to have 2 types of people. The more established person, has been in the business, is more established in the personal financial, wealth building goals, right? They've got the money, but they don't have the time. The younger person may have the time, but not the money. So get together, partner on that. Right? So there's people in the room that might have the money, but don't have the capital. There's people in the room that have the capital, that might have the time. And you guys can work together on a property, acquisition like this. So those are the big 3 that I hear people, and then, just fear in general, right?
Spread myself too thin. What happens, spread yourself too thin and all of a sudden it collapses inward.
And I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't spread myself too thin for an extra $500, but we're literally talking about an extra $6,000-$8,000 a month on one property to your bottom line.
So a couple of logistics questions. So it sounds like we're talking about purchasing our own properties and, utilizing all this. But what if we wanted to do this as a property management company? Is there, when you're putting it on VRBO or Airbnb, is there a different process?
Same process. So if you had a friend, for example, let's say you had a friend and you know that they've got a great cabin and you say, I've just learned some stuff. I could take care of that for you and double your revenues. You can co-host on Airbnb. So Ladin, do you and Dee do that with your accounts?
That's what we're gonna do with the cottages.
Yeah, you can manage somebody else's property for them. It could be just a family member, right? And take these tools and say, you know what, that cabin, that apartment we have, I know we could double our income on that, and I could partner with you on that.
And the second question is, if you did decide to do dual platforms or something, I know that there is some software out there, I guess, that will, if you book it on VRBO,
Yep.
it'll automatically take it off of Airbnb. Is
Yep,
that?
there's lots of channel managers like that.
Okay.
Exactly, that'll sync your calendars for you. I've done it, they work pretty reliably well. You still have to know 2 different platforms. It is kind of a bit of a headache, but if you had a property, yes, there is software that handles that very seamlessly. Yeah.
Do you have any experience, or can you speak to the people who do it out of their own house? Like it originally started out as people renting them out or part of their house, or
Again, everything that I've taught would apply to that. I particularly am laser focused on the opportunity of repurposing these getaway houses. Yeah, is there, do you have an apartment in downtown Wilmington? Can you use all of these tools to do better than every other apartment in downtown Wilmington? Yes. If you had one investment to make, I would say to make it not in the urban setting, not to make it in the beach setting, unless you really love the beach. But if you really want to maximize ROI, find one of these $150,000, $200,000, $250,000 cabins that you can make $12,000 a month for.
When you are finding these, are you finding that you have to make a lot of updates yourself? Like that's, I feel like that's the only thing that ever holds me back from doing anything. It's like, oh, how am I gonna find somebody to like get there and do these updates?
So I'm handy,
Right. You're-
I'm handy, but that's okay. I have handymen. I have a guy who's a Class A builder that I pay $30 an hour and he can renovate bathrooms.
So you send him and they travel.
You can find somebody. This is real estate. We're problem solvers. We can find a contractor that can renovate a bathroom for us for $3,000, right? No?
Well, I have not had any luck with contractors lately. So.
Okay.
She's been renovating her kitchen.
I know a ton of builders.
Okay.
My kitchen has, I've been sitting there for like over 3 months with nothing.
Well, we can strategize on it. I mean, there are people that are handy and like money and, can be paid to do things, hang drapes and blinds and don't let that hold you back, right? Indeed.com.
Trust me, I want to.
Indeed.com. Put up an ad, you'll find something, I promise.
I have a question. So when you were in Greece, was purchasing a property in
I
Greece a
did-
consideration?
It was a consideration, actually.
Yeah.
And we found a great agent that looked at a place that looked beautiful online. This cabin looked fantastic. It showed great. What's that?
Buying something in Greece.
Oh, buying in
Buy-
Greece.
would
Oh, I
you
almost bought
purchase
a-
internationally? And-
I wouldn't, we will probably retire in that area and probably pick up, there's a little place outside of Athens that's called Nafplio that would be ideal. Like if we moved to Greece, I know exactly where I would transfer this business to, but yeah, and so that the answer to that question is this is a worldwide phenomenon. Yeah, I could move to Athens and there's a place about 2 hours away that everybody loves to go and you can buy, little apartments and, I would transfer this business there, in a heartbeat. So the phenomenon exists around the world. Everybody is, and I didn't hit this point that hard. So post-COVID, this isn't just getaway. This isn't, I just want to get away for the weekend. This is work away. I'm getting, and this has just happened the last couple of months. I'm starting to get messages like, hey, me and my boyfriend decided, we both work from home and instead of sitting in our apartment in DC, we're going to book your cabin for a Tuesday and Wednesday. So this is causing a whole new class of midweek demand. Right? So millennials or younger professionals that, that instead of sitting in their coffee tables looking at each other working, they go rent a nice place and we'll work. And then at 4, we'll go take a hike. So there's a whole new demand class that's just emerging. So that's why somebody said, are we too late to the short-term rental? You were exactly on time for this business. Don't look back in 2 years from now and go, man, that guy was right. Damn it. Why didn't I do something? Like the time really is now to get started. And because like I said, all the things that you learned today, 95% of current hosts on Airbnb are not doing. Take a look. Look for professional photos. Nobody's got professional photos. Look at their calendars. They're booked. Look at their pricing. Their pricing's flat. The things that you've learned in the last 90 minutes puts you ahead of 99% of every host, every super host in the world.
I'm just curious as to why you point to doing 2 hours from Wellington, why we would think as if we're already here, we could manage our property for those people driving from Raleigh to Wellington. Is that bad thought? Because you said, don't buy beach, don't buy urban, go to the mountains. So I was just curious
So-
if you could say that.
Because I think if you're buying in an existing rental market, like a beachfront, that rent is baked into the sale price per foot.
Okay.
Right? So what's the price per square foot of a cabin? $200. What's the price per square foot on the beach or a block off the beach and around here?
Depends, but yeah, 800 foot.
So for me, it's an opportunity cost issue. Sure, could I buy what's if you guys want, somebody wants to sell me a beach house? Anybody have a beach house listing? Right, yeah, what if I'm a block off? Can I get something for
650.
650?
Yeah, 650.
Okay, so I could buy a 650 beach house and make it work on Airbnb. Or, and I could, right? I could get, I could get it to pay for itself. I could get it to cash flow, right? Or I could buy 3 cabins that are gonna make $10,000 a month because I'm buying them at $150 a square foot. So that's it. See, I'm with real estate. I've learned it's price per square foot. So the beach, urban places where there's already a rental market. So there's 2 things that I'm teaching today. 1, how to be successful on Airbnb, and 2, how to buy right. And the big boost in the ROI is on that repurposing that real estate from the just getaway. I'm selling it because because it's my weekend getaway. And now I'm going to repurpose that into a cash machine. So, and that's where you get the $150 a square foot instead of $800 a square foot.
So,
Because then I can buy 4 of them.
so, I've heard horror stories about property management and all this. And what's your experience with bad tenants? And
So I've had 1,500 guests. I've had maybe 3 bad tenants.
so what's the trick? Because I mean, some people say stay away from that. That's the worst thing ever. What's your experience like that? Like, is it a higher price point so you get better?
Higher price points help. You also it's a business. You're gonna have mostly awesome guests. You're gonna have some annoying guests, and you're gonna have a couple of bad guests. You just got to look at it like a business. And somebody broke a plate. You don't take it personally. So many hosts, particularly on Airbnb, something happens, and I'm on these Facebook groups, and people complain. And they did this, and they smoked pot in my house, and they left some paraphernalia, or they broke something. Throw it out, clean the house, move on.
Can't you rate them too?
You can.
Yeah, so if they're really bad, they can walk, I think.
In Virginia now, you could leave them some weed as a micro amenity.
You have to just move on. It's a business.
You have to have a really good house clean.
Yeah.
You have to have a really good house.
Our experience has been lower price gets you more hassles. And then some of it, like one of the properties we had, Dee put it on the market, one of our first guests was like a husband and wife and a couple kids, and they left. Dee sent me pictures. There's like, I don't know what went on. There was blood all over the place, blood all over the towels. We think maybe they were drug addicts or something like that, and they left at 4 in the morning and they were gone. And so we never communicated with them afterwards. We had to go buy new linens and everything like that. But we probably made $500 off the stay, and we probably spent a couple $100 on new linens. Like, it's not the end of the world. It annoys you, but you get past it. ROI is still there.
I have a so just to tell you that I'm not totally anti-beach, I have a 7th Airbnb property that had actually the longest. It's a condo in the Turks and Caicos on Grace Bay, which is routinely voted the world's greatest beach. I paid $400,000 for it. In a non-COVID year, it does about $75,000, $80,000 in gross, but it's a non-performing asset. It doesn't cash flow. It pays its mortgage. It's on a 15-year note. It pays that mortgage, but it's break even. So that's $400,000 in debt that I have locked up in a non-performing asset. Then I love it. It's a family amenity. It's probably not going to go anywhere. I would, potentially,
3 years when the mortgage is paid off.
potentially take that $400,000 of, debt and do something else with it. But so, it's a perfect story about the beach. It's in the most beautiful beach in the world. It's in a beautiful resort. It's in a great location. My family loves it. But, the developer knew what the prices were going to be, and there's management fees, and it's all baked in for me not to win. That's a good takeaway. Airbnb is you have control over the win for yourself, right? You have control over pricing, amenities, decor, renovations, and you can return on that immediately. In a long-term rental, I've owned long-term rental condos, and I've never done well on them. I've never, at the end, it's always messed up. You can change your pricing once a year. You can't triple your pricing, right? You can't take that $2,000 condo and make it $6,000, when it's vacant, 3 months from now. So that's why I think it's kind of a really unique opportunity with the short-term rentals is you can go in. I had a cabin. We took it off the market for a week, went in, renovated a kitchen, renovated a bathroom, put it back on the market, and doubled the prices. You can make these quick changes.
A couple things. So because we are in a beach market, and it's kind of on the question before was, and on Gary's question, because we live in a beach market, people do want to come here, they will pay really good money to stay in town, because if you live in Charlotte or Greensboro, they think of Wilmington as the beach, and they're not going to be able to afford $700 a night to stay on the beach or $1,000 a night to stay on the beach. Go look at there. Number one, there's nothing available on Wrightsville Beach, Carolina Beach, Topsail, Oak Island. There's nothing available anywhere if you look right now. I promise you. There's also nothing available in town if you have a pool. So you can have a hot tub or a pool, and you can have a Wilmington area, which is what we do, in town, and people are coming out of town treating it like a beach vacation, and they're like, "How far are you from the beach? How far are you from the beach? How far are you to downtown?" The other thing is, on top of that, there's a thing they call the Augusta rule, where like what Gary asked about, can you rent your own house out? You can rent your own house out up to 2 weeks per year. They call it the Augusta rule because I guess the people in the members at Augusta got it passed. You can get up to 2 weeks per year by renting your own house out tax-free.
Oh, tax-free.
Tax-free.
So you rent your own house out all you want, right?
Mm-hmm. You can rent it out as much as you want, but up to 2 weeks is tax-free. Yeah. So if you wanted to Airbnb your own place, or if you lived at the beach and you want to do that, you can do that. Check with your CPA, but it's tax-free 2 weeks.
Matt, are you worried about the short-term rental restrictions in Wilmington at all?
Yeah, Wilmington has some restrictions, and right now it's kind of in it's a little bit of a holding pattern. We actually, partner and I bought a property 2 years ago. They gave us a permit, and then they denied the permit after we bought it because they said we didn't own it at the time of the permit. So we disclosed that to them, and we were actually in a little bit of a legal battle with them, and then COVID happened. While that happened, so we didn't have a hearing, and then while that happened, this North Carolina, there's a statewide thing right now where they're saying that the municipal city of Wilmington's rule that you can't have a short-term rental within 400 feet of another is unconstitutional.
But
So
they're
you're
allowed
seeing
to
that
enforce it while they're fighting that, right?
Yeah. And we are continuing to run our place until they do it. Yeah.
And what I advocate for is taxing, guys. This municipalities have this issue comes up, there's Airbnbs and the neighbors complain, and is it going to drive up our home values, and is it going to drive out the community feel, and all these kind of issues. And the response from government is either ban it, regulate it, or tax it. And as an Airbnb operator, I think it's a better solution to tax it. Fine, I'll pay 5% hospitality tax, right? If there's going to be a city tax on it, I'll pay the tax. I'll gladly pay the tax. The government can reinvest that in parks or schools or whatever it needs to, as opposed to the heavy hammer of let's ban something that's bringing people to our community, eating in our restaurants, bringing people to visit this fine area, to buy houses and bring up, so I think that taxing is a much better, so if there's something to be advocated for, look, advocate for a tax. I'd rather find a market, people are like, well, that market's got a hospitality tax. Fine, I know what the playing field is. I don't mind paying 5% hospitality tax to reinvest in that community. And I know that they're not going to go do something crazy, like try to ban short-term rentals.
Our formula is anything that we buy or renovate, we want to make sure that it would work as a long-term rental, but we don't plan to do any long-term rentals. But I also don't want to fall back. I don't want to buy it thinking, hey, I've got to get $5,000 a month of cash for this. I want to do it if I think, hey, long-term rental, I could get $2,500 a month. If I can make it work at that, and I can get 2 or 3 times that short-term, that's
That's
where
the
our goal
gravy.
is.
Any other questions? I have no idea what time it is, so. Well, I appreciate everybody's questions and enthusiasm. I will be around all day. My business cards are out. I'm available to any of you today. I don't know how we wanted to handle these breakout sessions. It was like
Whatever, I mean, basically, he's around, so if anybody wants to talk about, I mean, Dee's here, so she may.
So
have some
that's
questions
does
on
anybody have a short-term rental that they like, would like some advice? One,
Sorry.
one back here. Okay. Does anybody here really want to like dive into, you know, okay, I really want to buy a place and can I get some advice in some markets? Okay, so it seems like there's 3 or 4 of those. Crystal, why don't I do the people who really want to take a deeper dive into looking at their next property kind of first, and then I don't know if you're around after that.
That's fine. And I'm sort of in that category.
Okay, so we'll do it all together then. Okay. So maybe let's take a 5-minute, 10-minute bio phone break, and then I'll be right here and we can dig into the next level. Yeah. No, like I gave her my phone and I haven't had it. That's why you guys are gonna be lost too as well.
So I might just go like.